Hello and welcome to Why the Parts Department is Not Your Dealership's Black Sheep. This Automotive News Power Training webinar is brought to you by OEC. We're delighted you're with us today for this presentation. I'm Jim Treese, News Editor at Automotive News. Before I introduce our speakers today, here are a few navigation tips. First, we encourage you to ask questions at any time. Just type them into the Q&A box on the left side of the webinar window and then hit Submit. I will steer your questions to our speakers after their presentation toward the end of the session. To enlarge the slides, just grab the frame with your mouse and pull it larger. And to download the slides, click on the folder icon there at the bottom of your console. Today's speakers are John Palazzo and Bonnie Coleman. John is Vice President and General Manager, Mechanical at OEC, where he is responsible for growing and managing profit and loss for the mechanical business. Bonnie is Product Manager Mechanical at OEC. She has spent most of her career developing dealership solutions within the motorcycle and automotive markets. And now I'll turn it over to Bonnie to get us started. Please take it away.
Great. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar. I'm Bonnie Coleman. To kind of get us started, I'd like to review the topics that we'll be covering during the next 40-45 minutes or so. So we're going to be talking about the shop's perspective, the shift that's occurring in the OE parts demand, and what you can be doing to take care of your mechanical business and the industry as these trends are changing. John will go ahead and talk to you about the industry-specific trends to mechanical, changes inside the dealerships and the shops, and then I'll follow up by talking about, why now, what OEC, OEMs, and dealers are doing today that are driving mechanical business in this sector. To start us off, we'd like to look at a comparison between the mechanical and collision industry. Many of you are wholesale dealers, and you're very familiar with how to service and how to compete against the aftermarket or different parts suppliers in the collision industry. But when we start to look at the mechanical industry, there is not a lot of information out there when it comes to mechanical. There aren't any, insurance agencies that have, specific requirements about parts that can be purchased and things of that sort. So when we look at it, the industry is a much bigger marketplace than collision. There are 3 times the number of shops that you could be selling parts to. There's 3 times plus the growth opportunity in dollars that can be had. There are parts that they're looked up differently, right? They start with make, year, model. They don't start with VIN. The parts in the aftermarket, use a different standard, if you will, that allows for that make, year, model lookup. It's our belief that every dealer should be selling mechanical parts to shops, not just a subset of the dealers. And if you look at the landscape, shops have over 40,000 places to buy a part from times 22 brands. And if you look at the number of dealerships that we have in the U.S., there are only 18,000 dealers to buy from, and most of you are only single-branded. Our OEMs and dealers, historically have focused on collision. There's many more programs in support of, conquesting collision parts, but this is changing rapidly on the mechanical side. There's a lot of shop also systems, right? So look at the 10 for collision versus, 40 plus, on the mechanical side that, we would look to integrate with in order to help facilitate the selling of the mechanical parts.
All right, Bonnie, so we'll take that next stop and we'll take a look at, that gives you a good idea of kind of the landscape of the marketplace and how to compare and contrast collision to mechanical, and the size differences and where dealers are today, which is the majority of our audience out there right now. What we want to get into now is if you're going to sell to this marketplace, probably a good place to start is to understand who you're selling to and take a little bit deeper dive on that to understand what they're dealing with. So we kind of picked a few things here that'll help you understand from a shop's perspective what it is that actually they are dealing with. First and foremost, you may be aware of the fact that shops have always asked for and always wanted more information. That information is service information, that information is part information. At the end of the day, they just want to have better information to fix the vehicles, which have the brands that you all represent's name on them. So cars are getting a lot more complicated to fix as we look forward. So this is something that is a highly conversed topic in the mechanical repair marketplace. So obviously they're going to continue to ask for that information of how to fix these cars, and who best to bring that information to them would be the OE side of the marketplace. When we look at the complexity of cars, just to give you guys a perspective, a lot of press is written about, all this technology in the cars and Teslas in every headline that's out there today, it seems like. But this information, this technology that's really different and unique, has been finding its way to these independent repair facilities for quite a long time. And it's not just the luxury vehicles at the brand I just named. It's not just the Lexuses of the world or the Cadillacs of the world. It started, one that I know of is, you can go back to 2004, the Toyota Sienna had adaptive cruise control, for example. You had a Chevy Cruze in 2011 that had park assist. So it's not just the high luxury stuff or the new brands that are not traditional, if you will. It's a lot of these cars. So these cars are finding their ways into the repair facilities already. Secondly, or third, I should say, is shops get paid for their time. So speed and efficiency is very, very important to them. So when you look at that, and you also understand that they're operating with a very thin margin of 3 to 4%, they need predictability. So a lot of you out there probably have this idea that, well, maybe the reason why I don't do business with shops is that they want me to deliver a spark plug across town in 30 minutes or less. That's not exactly true. Matter of fact, that's more myth than actual reality. What they really want is predictability. So just put yourself in their position, because you're one of their customers or have been over your lifetime. You bring your car in typically in the morning, or you make an appointment to bring in the morning. You want to have some predictability of when you can get your car back, after work, on the weekend, whatever it might be. So if you can help give them predictability, you can also help them service the customer. If they can service the customer, everybody's happy. We get the right car in the right period, in the right parts, the right time, so that you and I can get back on the road and on with our lives. The last big thing that they're dealing with, no different than a lot of the dealerships, or all the dealerships, is the lack of technicians. And as you look at cars getting complicated to repair, and you look at for demand for technicians because of these other trends we're going to talk about, being the cars that are actually the units in operation right now that are driving it, everybody needs more technicians. And the challenge for this side of the business is, what is the mix of technicians between the complexity of cars? Do I need to have electricians in here, guys that really understand in depth how to repair cars from an electronic standpoint, or is there still going to be maintenance and repair going forward? That's kind of the mix that is an ongoing debate, I would say, in today's world. But these just gives you an idea of a few things, or a handful of things, that the market is dealing with, the market being the buyers. So going forward, guys, one of the things that we want to do is we want to have active participation in this webinar. So we're going to pop in here a couple of different poll questions to get thoughts and ideas from the audience as to what you think about certain areas of the marketplace that we're talking through. So if you would, please just click on the yes, no to the question there of, do you think shops want to adopt and go online? I don't want to answer that question for you, but I'd love to, but I'll give you a little bit of time to do that. You guys can see a little bit of the response rate there, so interesting feedback thus far. The reality that we see is shops do want to go and purchase online, and matter of fact, they've had that opportunity to purchase online since the mid-90s from the traditional aftermarket. Some of us were there for those early days, and we won't say who that is. Now let's talk about kind of the get a better understanding of the shift of the marketplace or the market trends that are organically happening that kind of start feeding to the why now and why is it different. And I'd like to compare it to, if you're a dealer, the years back, if those of you can remember, when you didn't sell tires. So there was a point in time that you didn't sell tires, and automakers came to you and said, you think you should sell tires. And prior to that, you were sending them down the street to your competitors. Now, the vast majority of you, if not all of you, sell at least some level of tires, some of you really well. And there's all good reasons to do that. So I look at the mechanical B2B business for some of you in that same type of vein. Is historically we haven't done a great job of servicing this side of the marketplace. And now we're trying to do a better job because A, the market opportunity is there. B, we have dynamics in the marketplace that are in our favor. And C, it is a place that we have never been and that we likely need to go. And automakers are getting there, the marketplace is getting there, and now dealers need to start to get there if you're not already. So let's start to look at some of those trends that are in the marketplace as we speak and some of the shift that's occurring. So I stole this quote from someone in the industry that said, hey, if you think things are complicated in the past, it's going to get a lot more complicated going forward. So that is true in many ways, but in some ways it's easier and a little bit more simple. Before we get into the trends, though, I'm going to throw another poll question at you. And that is, how do you see technology changing your parts department, or how have you seen it change your parts department already? You can kind of give us some ideas and what you feel the impact technology's had on you. We greatly appreciate some of that feedback, and I'm sure the audience would as well.
I'll jump in here and say this is Jim Treese from Automotive News again saying, looks like you get one answer here. So multiple answers aren't allowed on this one. So which is the biggest change?
Interesting. Communication, housework. All right, that's really good feedback, guys. Thank you. That's kind of where we are at the moment, and gives you an idea of where the audience is and the fact that you guys are already adopting technology in one way or the other, particularly in the area of ordering. Probably, given the background of the marketplace, I would imagine a lot of you will lean to the ordering on the collision side and maybe not as much on the mechanical side. So let's talk through some of these market or environment changes that are driving some of the market that is interesting and fueling the opportunity, if you will. First and foremost, if you look across, there's a lot of things that we could pick to be in here, we just picked 3 different areas of technology that we wanted to take a look at. First, there's this thing called driverless cars out there that you keep reading about probably every other day. Next, you hear about this thing called electric cars that seems to be really important to the marketplace as well. And then third, this thing called ride sharing. So driverless cars, the interesting thing isn't so much driverless cars. What's interesting is driverless cars are driving quickly technology into the parts area of our business. The goal to being driverless is really the fuel, if you will, to that particular outcome. I think in 2011, Ford was the first one to kind of put some of these types of technologies in the marketplace, and I think I may have mentioned earlier, and this isn't in just your luxuries, your $90,000 plus vehicles. This is in a base model 2011 Ford, I think it's a Fiesta or something out there. It's a $16,000 base price, and it had driver assist. So this is 2011. We're about to get into 2018, so that product has been in the marketplace for a long time. Actually sat through a webinar of a repairer once, and he said, and he asked a bunch of other repairers, he said, hey, how many of you guys have electricians in your repair department? And not a lot of them raised their hand. And he said, well, you know, back in the day, we used to do the wrong thing because we weren't electricians or we didn't have the right certifications, and we used to put the wrong nodes on the wrong areas of the car, and we used to get a shock. Now you die. And so that one quite grabbed the audience, and said his feedback was obviously you can't, not that a lot of repairers are dying out there, but the fact that it's different and you got to have an expertise, and that's one area that he was recommending that the repairers need to have expertise. And on the electric car side of it, moving on, another topic that has gotten a lot of press over the years, and some of the marketplace says about globally, I think, of the marketplace is expected to go, what, by 2023, 30% of all the UIO is going to be electric. Now that's really interesting because you got Volvo out there saying in 2019 every new model will be in part run on electric. You have Jag Land Rover, every car in their lineup will have an electric option by 2025. BMW stating that going to offer, I don't know, about 25 electric vehicles in that same time period. So the unique thing, or not the unique thing, but the similarity of all those three brands that I just stated is luxury, luxury, luxury. But it's not just luxury. Take the quote from Mark Reese, who is the head of product at General Motors, when he basically stated that he believes at some point in the future their entire lineup will be all electric. That's a pretty bold statement if you're a repairer, that the largest VM in the marketplace, vehicle manufacturer in the marketplace, is saying at some point in time we are going to abandon what we've traditionally built our business on and we're going to go all electric. Those guys own 25% of all the units in operation in the marketplace today. That's when it starts to kind of get your attention. Then the last one over there, that ride-sharing one, that's another trend that is kind of pushing the value of OEM parts. And that is, as you see in the stats up there, 33% of Americans have heard of rideshare, but 15% of us have actually used it. So 33% is interesting, but the 15% of us that have actually used it, that to me is like shocking fast, that we've adopted that service as quickly as we have. But the takeaway for this group shouldn't be ride sharing is interesting and the adoption is interesting. The real takeaway is who is going to own the product or who is going to be owning the vehicle in the future. That is the biggest change that ride sharing is going to, or how ride sharing is going to impact us. Who is the customer that owns that vehicle, that particular vehicle? Today it's an individual. In the near future, that could be a big change. For those of you who today service, fleet vehicles through fleet management companies, for example, you have a glimpse of what the future could be. The difference is that we don't really know what impact and how big that impact is on the marketplace. So, other trends that are driving the business. So here's some interesting data points. You got the average age of a vehicle, 11.5 years and growing. You have 68 million vehicles that have come off warranty or coming off warranty as we speak for the next 3 years. And 75% of those vehicles are repaired not by dealers. That is the big takeaway of that. So the interesting thing about the 11.5 years, that's been rising yearly. It's the highest of all time. It's increased 17% over the last 10 years, and by 2020, we expect vehicle ages 12 and older will increase by another 15%. Why does that matter to you as dealers? Because those vehicles trickle out of your dealership faster than, there's more of those vehicles than you can repair in the short term, and they trickle out of your vehicle out of your dealership right after warranty or soon after warranty. I know that is the priority for every one of the brands and every one of the dealers, as it should be. We want that vehicle to come back to the dealer first. However, as Bonnie will point out later, you don't have enough bays in your dealership to service the UIO that you have today, let alone the growth that we've seen over the last 3 years, let alone the growth that we're going to see going forward, given all the trends. On the 68 million vehicles, from 2014 to 2016, we sold more vehicles in a 3-year period than we ever have before. So if you're a repairer today, some of the trends that you're hearing about or feeling they talk about low car counts, for example. The reason why they're feeling low car counts or seeing some low car counts in some areas across the country as a repairer, an independent repairer, for example, is because you remember back in 08 and 09 when we didn't sell a lot of cars. So they're feeling that right now, to give you an idea. But that is going to go away fairly quickly as the data above kind of outlines, and the fact that we've sold a ton more cars. And then lastly, 75% of all repairs are done by independent repair facilities. There's about 120,000, depending how you count them, of independent repair facilities outside that do not include dealerships today. About 60%, actually about 57%, I think is the number, of those vehicles in operation out there today are domestic, and that's going to shift by 2020. It's going to go from 57 down to 53 because imports have sold so well over the years. So those are some of the trends that are driving the need and the demand for OEM parts. And let's take a look kind of going forward of how this stuff is starting to impact you at the dealership. The question we get asked a lot are, what are the OEMs doing with all this technology, and what is their opinion of this technology? We would answer that in short as they are embracing it and charging ahead versus looking at it as a threat. So OEs are building their own technologies. OEs are partnering with tech companies. I mentioned Ford was the first, I believe, with Microsoft maybe 15 years ago or so. They're investing in technologies. I know GM is a big investor in Lyft, and you see some of the other brands and who they are investing in and who they're partnering with. What we don't know are what we don't know. So the times are changing. So what does that investment mean in Lyft? What does that investment mean in Bridge and Toyota and Uber and on down the line? Everybody has slightly different twists on their strategies if we know, well, the strategies that we are exposed to today in the press and the conversations that we have. But make no mistake that all of these strategies are things that are going to affect the repair market and your opportunities and those people and yourselves that repair those vehicles. So know this, that everything we've talked about today is, is tech coming? Yes. Are OEs embracing the change? Yes. To what extent and when it's all going to happen? Who knows exactly? A lot of theories out there today. Impact is hard to measure as we sit here now. All these examples so far that have had a common theme: how vehicles park themselves when it comes to technology, how they drive themselves when it comes to technology. But if you look at that other little logo there called My Price Link, there is technology being used right now that is all around parts. We're fortunate here at OEC because My Price Link is an application that we actually built and designed on behalf of and with the help of some of the OEMs. And just to give you guys some idea, look at it this way. So if you're a GM dealer, you're familiar with this little known product called, little known service called My Price Link. So in short, every automaker to a certain extent prints a parts list price for all of their parts and then disseminates it across the country and down different channels so that the market can digest it and use it in a variety of different ways. So that can be done by CDs, that can be done by part price tapes, et cetera, et cetera. Now what's going to happen, or now what's happening in some levels for some of the parts that automakers like General Motors, is they're using My Price Link to develop a dynamic list price in real time at the moment in which that price is demanded. What I just said in a different way was that we'll tell you what the list price is, but we need to get a little information from you before we do that. So tell me what it's for, where you are, who you are, how you are, type of things like that, and then I'll give you that list price. And I'll do that in about 0.47 seconds. And I'll do that about 115 million times per day. And that's roughly how it works today. To kind of understand it better from a consumer standpoint and digest it, the way I would look at it is, there was a time, and I'll put myself in this category, not by my request here, but I'll put myself in this category that when I wanted to fly from Cleveland, Ohio to Los Angeles, I used to look at a little booklet, and I used to say, hey, on January 15th, I want to fly from Cleveland to LA, and it used to have a price there. And there was a price for first class, and there was a price for coach. And then I'd go, great, it'd be $300, I'm flying to LA on that time period, and then I'd call up, I guess, and I'd get my ticket. Now, we both go online. We want to go from Cleveland to LA. I'm sitting here in Cleveland, and I'm in Hudson, Ohio, and my counterpart that's going to be on that same is in Cleveland, Ohio. We both go to the same website. We buy a ticket, same day, same airline, same time. We're in the same row, but I bet you we didn't pay the same price. So that actually happens today in the B2C or business-to-consumer marketplace, and we have been adopting it for years and years and years. So what I described for you in the My Price Link area is that stuff is happening in the parts area as well as we speak. That being said, now Bonnie's going to go into a little bit on the why now and kind of the tangible outcomes of some of these trends and what's happening in the marketplace.
Okay, great. Thanks, John. So why now? As John mentioned, in the last 3 years, we've sold more cars than ever before. As a result of those sales, there is a great deficit in the number of cars that need to be repaired just based on the number of, UIO that's out in the U.S., as well as the number of bays to repair them in. So looking at the slide, by mid-year 2018, there will be 241 cars in light trucks on U.S. roads for every one service bay. Dealerships aren't going to be able to, continue to add service bays in order to, increase the number of cars that they can repair. And we should also remember, as John mentioned, that 75% of the repairs are occurring outside the dealership in the independent repair facilities. If you look at, growing your business, one of the avenues is, the independents are out there needing your parts, and it's a great opportunity instead of just looking, at your independent service lanes. So now we'll talk about the shift for OE mechanical parts. So here's some of the, why now. There's some organic things that are happening in the marketplace. So one, the need for OE parts has basically doubled since 2015. There is a demand out there. The IRS need to come to you for certain parts in order to repair vehicles. A few months ago, I was actually at a Ratchet and Wrench, which is a shop magazine, at a shop
Conference,
sorry. My brain obviously went blank there. Apologize for that. And one of the things that they were talking about is, there are now more lines of code in vehicles than there were in the last spaceship, that was built. So when you're talking about just complexity of the vehicles on the road, those types of, sensors, that the IRS do need information from you, as well as the parts. Another stat that we should talk about is, online part sales grew 16% last year. 16%. So earlier you guys took a poll, and you all do agree that, IRS do want to get online. They do want to be, saving themselves time and be more efficient. I'm sure you want to be more efficient as well. So your answers to that poll question definitely support that, what we're seeing as a trend, that the growth is online. It's not, within the brick and mortar. So if you think about it, how many of us, started ordering from Amazon, so many years ago? You might have known, one or two people. Now it's pretty much a daily occurrence. On your lunch break, you could order the cereal you need, because you'll be done with that box by the end of the week. It's all about, convenience and having the information that you need, at your fingertips. The OEs, as well as you dealers, you need the IRS as much as they need you, right? You want to grow your business, and there's an opportunity for that. And they need you because of the sophisticated cars on the road, where they're going to need information and the parts to repair those vehicles. So kind of, let's start summarizing everything that we talked about here today. So 68.3 million vehicles are coming off a warranty in the next 3 years. Average age of a vehicle is increased, by 17% in 15 years. Vehicles move to IRS after warranty. The demand for OEM parts has doubled since 2015. And as we mentioned, IRS, they need the OE dealers. You know, as cars are becoming more and more complex, you know, the information is just as important as it is to have the parts for the repair. So, you know, develop those relationships with your IRFs. It's a great way to begin to start, you know, growing your business, providing excellent customer service to them. So as I mentioned, establish and foster, you know, independent repair facility relationships. One of the things that we know is, you know, the demand for OE parts, you know, continues to grow. The OEMs know this. They're beginning to, you know, run programs, you know, through systems so that you have the ability, you know, to compete just like you do in the collision space.
Hey, Bonnie, I'll jump in here real quick, and because that's a feedback we get from the marketplace a lot. Is a lot of dealers will tell us that, you know, hey, if I start to promote online ordering, I lose that relationship with the shop. That's one piece of feedback that we get. Another piece of feedback that we get is, you know, the shops want to call me. And yes, everybody likes to talk to a person versus a machine. That's true. But if you look back at the data that we share with you, and the shops get paid for their time, as much as they like to talk to you, they really like to get paid for their time. And the time that they're talking to you, they're not getting paid. So that's why the growth in online parts procurement has continued to grow out there. And they will grow, and they will use online, and actually they are preferring to use online. But those are two of the main pieces of feedback we get a lot from dealer parts departments, that I don't want to lose a relationship, and you won't, and you still need that relationship, which is Bonnie's outlining here. And yes, they like to talk to you, but only under certain circumstances. So I just want to add that, Bonnie, as a highlight, just to make sure everybody heard that clearly.
Sure. Thanks, John. All right, everyone. So we'd like you to participate in another poll we have here. So do you currently sell mechanical parts online to repair facilities or shops? All right, looks like we're getting some feedback. Oh, wow, we're just about 50-50. So just about, it ended up just a little bit higher. So yes, 60, no, 40. So, you know, one of the things, you know, that I'll share with you is, you know, we do offer an online tool called, you know, RepairLink. And what we do see is, you know, between 40 to 50% of all of our orders, you know, kind of they come after the dealerships are closed. So part of that, being able to sell parts online to your repair facilities, you know, is a definite customer service play, you know, by the dealerships. So the next thing we'd like to talk about is your number one priority. Should be, you know, building trust. You know, that's how you gain repeat customers, right? So how do we go about building trust with your shops? You know, make it easier for them to do business with you. You know, like I mentioned, you know, a lot of orders, you know, through our online tool that we see are after, you know, your business hours. So they're at, you know, anywhere between 7 p.m. all the way through, you know, 6 o'clock in the morning. You know, if you do business with a CarMax, it is a huge customer service play for you. You know, CarMaxes can run up to 3 shifts. That means they're ordering parts and using the tool all night long because they need, you know, to order the parts in order to have on the trucks, you know, to service those vehicles. You know, so customer service is a priority. You know, join an OEM marketplace, right? So if you think about GM, that has, you know, the largest market share with a UIO of about 24.6, you know, that means, you know, to an independent repairer, you know, if you have a GM dealership, you can only solve, you know, 2.4 out of every 10 problems that a repairer sees. if you're part of a marketplace, then, you're solving, at least in our marketplace, we represent just about 98% of the UIO. So you're giving them kind of that one-stop shop to get in there and source and order parts. So that has to go to, be where the buyers are. The aftermarket has been online for many years. They've trained the shops are used to going online, seeing pricing and availability, knowing when the parts will be delivered. They would love to have the same customer service from you as well.
Hey, Bonnie, I'd like to, if you want to go back on that slide real quick, just
Sure.
a couple of things to point out is we do get, when we talk about areas like customer service and being consistent and timely, I just want to make sure that we kind of hammer home the message of there is a perception out there from some dealers that you need to have a part anywhere and everywhere within 30 minutes or less. And that is definitely a perception. And I'm not saying that there's not shops that have that type of demand, but you certainly don't have to have a hot shot 30-minute or less delivery. What you really have to have is predictable delivery. So if you do want to if you are going to spend time talking to your shops, one of the things you do want to find out is what is their expectation and how do you align with that expectation. That's kind of the one step, and then kind of build from there. Don't think that you have to go and build a huge delivery network because you really don't need a lot to have a return on investment. And as I just sat down with a dealer last week in Dallas and heard the same response that I hear over and over is collision's getting harder and harder to make margin, and mechanical I can make some margin. So yes, you can't take margin to the bank, but I know your owners look at that stuff as well. So just want to make sure I pointed that out from a delivery standpoint because it comes up quite a bit. And then the other one is the OEM marketplace side. Is we're branding your dealerships as a brand called OEM, and that differentiates yourself from anything else that's online out there today because we do have the deepest relationships with the OEM, and we do have the dealers and the OEM's best interest in mind first and foremost. Is we're out there to advantage the dealer and the OEM against everybody else that's selling a part. And in order to do that, we need, and it's interesting that the way you guys answered the poll at that 50-50 type mark, because when you're building a marketplace, it means you have buyers and you have sellers. And when you ask buyers what you want most, they say more sellers. And when you ask sellers what they want most, and they say more buyers. So it's something that OEC's dealt with for 17 years of our existence. So know that that's what happens in the marketplace. So you guys are exactly where I expect the audience to be, as like a 50-50 split. We got about a third of you today that are involved in online ordering of marketplaces, and we expect that to be much higher, as Bonnie mentioned earlier, that we see mechanical as an opportunity for every dealership, not just some of the dealerships. So just wanted to highlight a couple of those areas for everybody in the audience before we kind of move it over back to Jim for the Q&A side.
Sure. I guess a couple other points or, ideas for dealerships would be, offer training programs. I know we work with a few OEMs and they have clinics that are set up, that their dealerships can take, advantage of. Pick a different type of repair and educate your shop, how, what the parts are necessary. Here's how you complete the repair, and while you're there, if you're using a tool like RepairLink, if you're in a marketplace, a piece of that should be, showing them, here's how you locate the part, here's how you order it, know that I will deliver timely to you, I'll respond timely to you. One of the things, when we were at the Ratchet and Wrench conference, we heard a couple of times is, some of the shops, they don't necessarily like dealing with the dealers because, that they don't respond timely to them, and they would like to have, better business relationships, with their dealer partners.
Yeah, that's good. So, Bonnie, we know kind of what the OEMs are doing. We talked a little bit about that. We talked a little about the trends in the marketplace. We gave you guys a little bit of a background on who the customer is. Unless you have anything else to add, Bonnie, I think Jim will turn it back over to you for open up for Q&A.
Excellent. If that's okay, I'll take it from here, and I will remind our audience, please continue to submit questions using the question tab at the bottom of your console there. Just type in the question and hit submit. We're going to start off with one that gets to a pretty basic question here that of price competitiveness and what it means for doing this business. I've got a question. A member of the audience says, I am a Lexus dealer. My problem is price. Lexus parts versus aftermarket Lexus. For example, he says the Lexus air fuel sensor is priced at $230 and the aftermarket is $140. Makes it pretty hard to compete. So what would you say to that man and a whole bunch of other folks who feel that same pain?
Yeah, Jim, it's some more feedback that we've gotten, I guess, over the years and a real-life scenario, if you will. The reality is, yep, you guys have some parts out there that are not necessarily competitive. You also have the best part out there. So in a good, better, best scenario, you have the best part. So you should get a premium for that part. Is there more of a premium that is there a premium service that you're going to provide for that part as well, is the thing that you as a dealer have to answer. That being said, that's one way to look at it. Another way that we're trying to help combat this, not us necessarily just being OEC, but us with the dealers and the OEMs, is what we call parts marketing programs. So we have this marketplace that we've talked about where we're going out and connecting buyers with sellers, with OEM being the brand behind it. On top of that, we're bringing in what we call these parts marketing programs. For years, OEMs have tried to incentivize dealers with, hey, buy more, do more B2B wholesale, and we'll give you more discounts on the back end. What we have found, whether it's a small amount of money of $5 and $10 to $200 to $300, whatever the case may be, we want to take that same type of money, and what we've practiced some years back, and what we're now proving with data, is if we take those marketing dollars that are from the OEMs and they partner with you to go and compete against that $230 to $140 deficit that you just outlined there, and you partner to put that money between you and the shop so the shop can see that you're no longer $230, you're $180 versus $140, but it's the Lexus part, and it's a complicated repair, and it's a complicated car, and you will get that business. We see that in data. We always believed it. We now have the data to show it, and it's not just those parts that they put money behind. As we have we can see through data now that we call them program parts and non-program parts. Program parts are the parts that the OEMs directly apply additional dollars with to make you more competitive, but actually show it to the shop, not just let you determine what you want to do with it, which I know is always a tough thing to hear. But when you put that and you show the shop that that's where the discount is, and you're partnering with the OEM to do that, we do that in different ways in the application, that goodness happens. And goodness is they buy a lot more program parts, and they buy a lot of non-program parts. Matter of fact, it's about a 60-40 split that we see. And we've had tremendous growth with all the OEMs that run those types of programs. We would love to have Lexus on the program. So whoever asked that question, please pick up your phone and call Lexus and ask them to call OEC to do a program with us.
Okay, next question here. This person says, I have a lot of wholesale customers that have signed up for RepairLink, but I only have 3 that have actually used it. Implication, how do I get more of them to actually take advantage of this?
Yeah, great question. We'll answer it in 2 ways. I'll first answer it from typical market dynamics, and then I'll have Bonnie give you a couple of things that some of the other dealers are doing to build awareness out there, and that's one of the things. So first is, I don't know the market that this is coming from, but I mentioned earlier that when we poll the sellers, they say, I want more buyers, which is exactly what this question falls into. When we poll the buyers, they want more sellers. So we know this. We know that the more brands that a shop attaches itself to, the more they use the system. So we know that if there's no brands available, meaning a dealer's not on RepairLink, then that value to them is less. Bonnie gave you the outline earlier. If you're a GM dealership or you sell the GM branded stuff, you have more UIO, you represent more of the market share than any other brand out there in the United States right now, but you're 24%. But I'm a shop and I repair all brands and all vehicles, but you're only representing 24% of my issues. So every 10, it's 2.4. So that we need to build the brand side of that, and that's where we can kind of work together to help do that. So first thing I would look at, who asked that question, is I would look at, do we have enough brand coverage in their market? Because we know we can drive that value up from there, and that would be my first one. And then second, we'll talk about awareness. And Bonnie, if you can give an example or two on that.
Sure. So we all know, behavior is the hardest thing to change, right? We probably all have a treadmill that we barely use, in our homes. But one of the things that we've pretty consistently seen, in the past 5-6 years of getting shops to adopt, or make that behavior change is, give them incentive to do it, right? If we have incentive to do something, we'll continue to go and do that. So one of the things that we've seen is dealerships giving, even a 5% discount, right? Tell all your shops, I'm going to give you 5%, for the next 30 days. And what we've seen is as long as you provide that timely, response, letting them know, yep, I have the part, you deliver it on time, the customers, they start making that transition. So we've done a few different studies partnering with dealerships that show, having this discount, moves buyers. And when the discount goes away, because the dealerships did provide that level of customer service, not all the buyers stayed online, but the buyer, there was an increase in the number of buyers, and those buyers increased, the number of sales coming through the application. So I would also, I would say too, of course you'd probably like to have all your buyers, but you're never going to have 100%, people transition or changing behavior in a timely manner. So, are they good buyers, and then, look at who's next, use your reporting tools. If you are on RepairLink, there's a metrics tab that will show you, how many shops are adding parts to carts, and then what's happening to those carts. You can use a buyer report that's also in RepairLink, available to all of our dealers, that will tell you who's attached to you. Maybe pick a couple of those and just focus on a small amount, and kind of, get those wins in bringing additional buyers over.
Okay. As you said, you get a lot of questions about that, what you call the mythical claim of the 30 minutes, but it's still an issue for some folks. So this audience member asks, if the standard does not need to be 30-minute delivery, then what does the standard need to be in your experience? It's a pretty straightforward logistical and execution question. What do you think that standard needs to be?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Question we get a lot of, and a question an obstacle we're always trying to help dealers overcome, and some of you in the marketplace have sat in some of our forums and know that we're researching that as we speak. That being said, to directly answer the question, I would put less minutes on it and tell you to put more about its predictable delivery as opposed to a minute-by-minute or 30-minute delivery. That's the first stage. Now, is there a chunk of the market that is used to 30-minute delivery because of the Napas, the CarQuest, et cetera? Absolutely. Are you going to be able to service them and compete out of the gate? Absolutely not. So you need to find those gems that you can service, those gems that you need to find, because you don't need a lot to build a business. So that would be my answer to that question, and pretty consistent with what we've seen for the many years. And I'll just add for the group that I fortunately was able to see the other side of the equation prior to coming to the OE side. So I visited thousands of different shops and literally and saw how they worked. And those guys actually do exist out there, and they're plentiful. You just got to find them in your given market.
John, I'm going to follow up. I'm not clear what you mean by predictable. Does that mean that every time you do deliver, it's going to be within X number of minutes, and that's always about that? Or are you talking about, twice a day or every whatever on a routine basis, you always come around delivering. What could you define predictable a little bit more?
It could be both, actually, because it depends on your market. Is it realistic? And here's what I mean. Is it realistic to deliver in 30 minutes in New York City or LA? Probably not in many, many areas. So what I mean by predictable, set that predictability either customer by customer, market by market, whatever fits for you. So predictable could be twice a day. It could be once in the morning, once in the afternoon. And many of the dealers out there, Jim, are already doing this. For example, we know, for example, like if you go online at Napa, they don't have I'll have it there in 30 minutes. Everybody just knows because they establish some predictability, and it's IRF by IRF, because you can't get to everybody in 30 minutes, but you can get to a chunk of them in 30 minutes. And then they have cars going around. There's all kinds of logistical models that dealers use, the independents use. But when I say predictable, what I'm referring to is tell them what you're going to do and then do it. If you don't do that, you're not going to earn their trust, as Bonnie outlined earlier. If you can build the trust and tell them what you're going to do, tell them you can or can't have it there by a certain time, tell them that and deliver upon that. That's part of the service that you have equation that we have to have. And let's face it, we haven't had to do this for our entire existence. What we're showing the market, what we're showing now is we can do this, and the market's wanting us to do this.
Okay. Thanks, that helps. Got a couple of questions here about signing up with you, and I'm going to toss two of them at you once. A couple of people have asked whether this is available in Canada, and another person has asked, do you verify that a dealer is an actual dealer?
Yes and yes. So we work, because of who we are. First, I'll take the first one. Is it available in Canada? Yes, it is. So we can give you any more detail they want. If they want to call into OEC, we can have one of our business development representatives talk them through what we have in Canada and what the opportunity is there. What was the second question again?
Do you verify a dealer is actually a dealer?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Again, the answer is yes. Because of our relationships and basically who we are and how we were created years back, we work very, very closely with the OEMs, and we only sell to the majority of our dealers solutions to dealers. So our entire business model has the dealer as the center of. So that means that every OEM, we know who the dealers are. We have their dealer codes. We verify those dealer codes. If you're not a dealer, we cannot represent you.
Okay. One person out there was sort of intrigued by your statistic on 241 light trucks and cars on U.S. roads for every one service bay. Want to know, is that per bay at dealers only, or is that dealerships and at the independents combined?
That's combined.
Okay. Question here from somebody who may already be a user. Where are you in the process of getting full integration with CDK in terms of real-time inventory, order fulfillment, stuff like that?
Yeah, that's a good one to bring up. Thank you. So we have been working diligently. We expect to have that by middle of this year with CDK, and I think the Reynolds and DealerTrack, I think it's in that order, or it might be DealerTrack and Reynolds after that. I forget what the order is. But I know CDK is first, and the other two come soon after that. And our schedule, as we sit here right now, is roughly mid-year.
Okay.
2018, yes, sorry.
Got a couple of questions related to WorldPack. One says that they have indeed made getting a part delivered in less than 60 minutes. So that is a factor, in this person's opinion, involved, at least when the dollars are not the primary driving force. And then another person simply says, how are you suggesting we deal with WorldPack? WorldPack can be a friend and it can be a foe. And here's what I would first say, and I'm very familiar with WorldPack, where we talk with them quite a bit. And what I would say is they've created a niche for themselves, just like the dealers can create a niche for themselves in the aftermarket. They have embraced more of the OE side of things than they have not. They have built a delivery model that is quick and efficient. They can now probably get just about anywhere in an hour or so.
so some dealers actually work directly with Worldpac because they have a great logistics system. But I guess what I would throw back is if Worldpac can do it without the parts and just a distributor, and they can compete and they can service and they can deliver, why can't dealers?
Good question. Another audience member has a sort of offbeat question for you. Do you see keys and key cutting as an opportunity for parts departments? I mean, if you're saying that it's not all just collision, is this an opportunity?
Do you see keys and key cutting as an opportunity for parts departments? Yeah, I think so. I'm not an expert in the key cutting side of the business, but we have heard of it over time that it's interesting. And it could be an opportunity, and we have heard from IRFs that they need to have the dealer do that type of thing because they're not going to be able to do it or don't do it today. So I can't claim to be an expert. I would definitely say that would fall into the area of if you can create the relationships with the IRFs and that's of value to them, that's one thing that you can bring that the market cannot.
Okay.
Bonnie, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, that one I don't.
Okay.
Well, going back to this building the relationship, if you don't have time to go to the shops in your area, what's the best way to communicate to the shops the independents that you're trying to sell to, encouraging them to order from us online? Yeah,
that's always a dilemma, and I think, Bonnie, I didn't know if you touched and gave some examples about what some of the dealers do already there, but it's tough to get out there, right? You do have to make time. Doesn't mean that you have to have FaceTime, but you do want to communicate with them. I would debate with you that the most cost-effective way to do that and get in the face of the shop is to get yourself part of a marketplace like RepairLink, and it's the most cost-effective way to be in their face 24/7, right? That's one way, and you can communicate through the system as well with your shop. Second, there's the basic marketing things, and third, as opposed to doing it yourself and just trying to brand yourself in a given market, whether you're one brand or 7 brands or 10 brands, that's all on you. When you become part of a marketplace like RepairLink, we do a ton of marketing at the shop level to change that behavior. Keep in mind that we are starting at the bottom rung of the marketplace. So if the marketplace is as the market says it is, the size of it being, 250 billion, 300 billion, or 150 billion, depending how you measure it, then and out of every 10 parts in the mechanical side, on a good day we get 1.5 of them are OE parts. We've got nothing but upside. But we just spent the last 35 minutes or so outlining what has changed in the marketplace and where the demand is going and what's happening with the cars, that shops are kind of like, hey man, I get paid for my time. I'm not trying to fuddle with a part that I don't know is going to fit. I might as well buy the OE. Because at the end of the day, a shop's just going to mark up that part to the buyer, and last I checked, a markup on a $100 part is a little bit better than a markup on an $80 part. I don't know if I answered the question directly, but I wanted to give you a little bit of feedback on there. Those are different ways that you can market to it.
Yeah, if I could just chime in with a couple ideas I know dealers currently do. So one, you give invoices to all your customers. So one might be, we have actually flyers out on the RepairLink website. There's a dealer marketing piece. So you could brand, a RepairLink shop flyer with your logo and include those with invoices if you'd like. We also have stickers that you could put on invoices that say, hey, remember to use RepairLink shop. If you're one of the brands, one of the 5 brands we have automaker programs running through, that would be an opportunity too. I know on the invoices, one of the dealers had mentioned at a conference I was at, what they were doing was if they could see a shop ordered a part that was in the program, they'd note that on the invoice, like, the next time if you order this, online, I can give you a better price. So those are just a couple ideas to kind of, get in front of the shops as well.
Okay. Well, we covered a lot of ground here, a lot of questions, but this is going to bring us to the end of the webinar. I want to thank today's audience for a lot of questions. We had some we didn't get to. Don't worry. OEC has promised to follow up by email, so you will be getting an answer to your question. If you learned something from this session, please tell your peers about it. The recording will be available in about an hour, and you will find it at autonews.com/powertraining. Also, when the webinar ends, a survey will pop up on your screen. Now, your feedback helps us to create future webinars that are even more beneficial to you because they're tailored to what you want to know. So please take a moment to fill it out for us. I want to say thanks again to John, Bonnie, and to OEC for bringing us the presentation, and especially to you for joining us. On behalf of everyone here at Automotive News, have a great rest of your day. Take care.